Good morning and welcome to another session of Facebook Live Tuesdays Tour. John Sauter and April Holeiter from your Purdue Alumni Association, and I'll even point out Jason Behanna now in our cart. He's going to be our driver because today is a special edition of Facebook Live. Because it's homecoming week, we're going to do a little cart tour of campus and show you a variety of buildings on campus. And so in our gas-powered cart, as we go under trees and all that sort of thing, you may lose just a little bit from time to time, but kind of hang in there. I think you're going to like this particular session. We're actually in Founders Park. It's the week before homecoming. It's just a beautiful day on campus. As April and I stand in front of the fountain, in fact, you can barely see it, but there's a rainbow effect with the sun and the fountain where we are. I think it's a good week. I think it's going to be a great homecoming. And Boston College better look out. So we predicted it right here today. So you've heard it here first. So we're in front of Loeb Fountain. Loeb Fountain is a special fountain, I think, to many of you, because it really used to be in front of Barri Hall. When it was in front of Barri, it had a roundabout, basically a road around it. You could actually drive around it. You could actually park in front of Barri Hall. And when it was there, it actually had a basin to it. It actually had lights. And I'm told that the students would put detergent in there late at night, and the administration would come in the morning, there'd be soap suds all over. That started around 1959. Loeb Fountain actually is established in honor of Solomon Loeb by one of his three sons, Bert and his wife June. They gave the money in honor of their father, Solomon Loeb, for Loeb Fountain. They also made a significant donation for Loeb Playhouse and Loeb's department store. In fact, when we first moved here in the 70s, Lafayette had its own 5-story department store right downtown on the square. You go to Loeb's, ride the elevator up just like the big city. It was really quite the offering. But the Loeb family was very generous. It was in Hovde in '59. It moved over here in 1988 and became an interactive water fountain, so the students can actually walk through it. In fact, if the wind just changes again, as it just did a few minutes ago, we'll get a little spray here. So it's a great spot to cool off. All a part of Loeb Fountain. In Founders Park. Founders Park was established in around 1994 to celebrate 125 years of Purdue, as we kick off the 150th this coming weekend. But 125 years ago, they wanted to celebrating 125 years ago, Founders Park, for all the students and staff, faculty, and people have come together to make Purdue what it is. And so it's somewhat of a historic area in that we have Matthews Hall kind of behind me. We have Stone Hall to my right. And so between Stone Hall and Matthews Hall, actually right through here, we used to have a railroad track. And the railroad track actually was a spur from the Lake Erie and Western Main line, which is out by the airport, and most of you know that. But this spur was here, and it would take coal to the North Power Plant over on campus for many, many years, as that provided heat and electricity, for the campus. It would take coal. Quite often, the cars would be pulled by a team of horses. When a locomotive was used, the rule was they can't do it. They could not do it while classes were being taught. So early in the morning, late at night, the coal would come through. In fact, we have a fairly faint picture here, but maybe you can see. This is an overhead drawing of campus, and here is the railroad track as it would come in between Matthews and Stone over to the power plant. And that railroad line, the Purdue Railroad, some of you have reminded us of this, actually held, and I think still holds, the Guinness Book of Records as the shortest railroad company in the world. And so there you go, another entry into the Guinness Book of Records. All a part of the history, the rich history of Purdue in Founders Park. The other building that is here is Barri Hall, opened in 1993. Barri Hall, named for Stephen Barri, our 6th president. It's the home of liberal arts, as well as the home of the education school. And you can see the Vision 21 conference room up at the top. Although I understand these days it has a different name. April, what's the name of that they call it?
I think people called it the Jedi Conference Room.
The Jedi Conference Room. Could have something to do with Star Wars, I got a feeling. But April's on top of that sort of thing, and so the Jedi Room. In fact, we're kind of intrigued by it, so I think we'll actually be doing a session from the Jedi conference room, maybe second semester or so. It just provides a great perspective of campus. So we'll be doing that. So that's where we are. We're headed this direction, so now we're going to jump in the cart and have a short tour of campus for you. So come on along. Bear with us here as we jump in. You getting in over there. All right, Jason, fire it up. Here we go. All right. Very, very nice picture of the fountain, and we're getting wet as we go by it right here. You got to come back and see this spot whenever you're on campus. This is a beautiful setting. And so you'll see a lot of real life students going to class. We were just talking coming over here. The students just don't know how good they have it these days. Just a great time to be at Purdue and be a Boilermaker. A variety of pieces of artwork are around the building in Founders Park. A nice setting as we got here. Several students were just sitting out for a moment, just kind of reflecting as they sat by the fountain. Great spot. We're behind University Hall. We'll be going by Recitation Hall. And I suspect many of you had classes there. Recitation opened up around 1923 or so. Primarily a classroom building, and I think again most students will have a class or two in that. We're headed in a northerly direction. We'll be passing by the Math Science building on our left. Math Science building with the wind tunnel. Some of you may remember that wind tunnel when you used to go to class. In the wintertime, the wind chill is nothing quite like it when you're going by there. The Math Science building, home to the School of Science, and the dean has her office there. ITAP, our information technology folks, are set up in there also. On the right, we're passing the Class of 50 lecture hall. It's a huge lecture hall with two classrooms, built with the help of the class of 1950. Maury Williamson, Jim Blakesley, and that gang kind of got together and did a great job raising funds, primarily a lecture hall, with around 500, 600, 700 seats or so for lectures, a great gathering spot, and a great history of Purdue is in also, in terms of wall graphics and that sort of thing. We're approaching Memorial Gym. This is your first warning. We're going under a lot of trees, so we may lose you here for a second. But Memorial Gym opened up around 1908 or so. Memorial Gym is called that because if you can see the front steps, there are 17 steps, some outside and now some inside. 17 steps for each of the victims of the 1903 Purdue train wreck. As Purdue was on its way to a football game in Indianapolis, train wreck, and unfortunately 17 casualties. It's dedicated to them. Opened up in 1908, had a large gym floor. This is where Johnny Wooden played basketball. He was an All-American for 3 years. Ended up obviously coaching UCLA and other good things. On the gym floor, they actually had commencement was held there. And back in the 30s and 40s, they had a big social event. Back then it was called the Junior Prom. And that's right, Junior Prom. And it was a junior prom, and they would bring in big name orchestras, Glenn Miller, and they would play till 2 or 3 in the morning. Just a great time to be here on campus and enjoying all that. Eventually the program moved out. When they went to Lambert Fieldhouse, the men's program, it became office buildings and was later named for Felix Haas, and now is primarily offices for the computer science school and some classrooms. We're now approaching the Armory, and as we do that, you can look down 3rd Street to the left. And I want to pause here as we look across University down 3rd Street. Many of you may recall your walks to campus down there. At the time as you did that, on that corner where that new building is, there was a little grocery store. And the grocery store was called the Black and Gold, B&G. I think there were other names for it also. I think someone on our line has told us it was called the Barf and Gag at one point. But a little grocery store, a mom and pop operation. And I put in front of April, here's a picture of the grocery store. You can see that it was the Black and Gold Grill back then. Changed ownership several times, and actually was around until about the 70s or so. Eventually now it's the computer, Lawson Computer building, dedicated to computer science. And there is a little cafe inside, yes.
David Huckleberry says it was also known as the Good Earth Market.
Good Earth Market, yes it was. Very good memory, good one. And it was actually quite handy to have a little grocery store where you could pick up items on your way to or from class and that sort of thing. A lot of the staff of Hovde, would go there also. Now we're right across the street from the Armory. I think most everyone's familiar with the Armory. It was opened up around 1918 at the end of World War I. ROTC was quite in force back then. In fact, ROTC, some of you will recall, ROTC was required of all students up into the 60s or so. But we still have a very strong ROTC program, and they do a lot of close order drill and that sort of thing. In the 50s and 60s, this building was used for registration. And as you might recall, you would walk in, and every seat in every class had a computer card. So you would actually walk in and get the cards when it was your turn to get the cards from the classes you wanted. At the end of the process, you gave them to a clerk who ran them through a computer, and out came your schedule. So registration was held here. That's obviously been much improved. Primarily it's used, you might remember it, mostly recent grads. This is where you actually will get in line for commencement. So this is where you assemble for commencement. They walk you across the street for a processional into the Hall of Music. But it's also used for large gatherings. I remember being in here with astronauts as they kicked off the Vision 21 fundraising campaign. They used to have the fish fry in here. Again, Maury Williamson put together quite an event with the fish fry. The egg fish fry would be held here each year. So we can go now. But still well maintained. One of its claims to fame is the worst acoustics on campus, I think I read someplace. But all the different offices for ROTC and their various halls of fame, they all have their offices in the Armory. We're now going to cross the street and get close to the rear end of the Hall of Music, and it's the home to the university bands. University bands are here, and we want to talk about the university bands just a little bit. And so we're going to hop out of the cart and do that. University bands, beautiful entryway right across the doors at the top. And a quick bit on university bands. Around 1886 or so, it started as a drum and bugle corps in supporting all the military science or the ROTC activities. Really existed almost as a student organization up until the early 1900s. 1904 is actually when they got their first director of the bands, and that's Paul Spots Emmerich, and there's a nice bust and dedication to him. And Spots Emmerich actually played several instruments. I think the clarinet was his best instrument, but he was elected by the students after his senior year to be the director. And so 1904 he started and went till actually around 1954 or so, 50 years in that position, and really was the foundation for what the bands are today, and started a variety of innovations. And it's written that he actually instituted the band at a football game forming Block P. And it's the first band to ever be in a formation and form a letter or any formation, as a part of a sporting event, as part of a band. And so that was his innovation. He was followed by Al Wright. Al Wright was the director from 1954 to 1981, and he was really the innovator. Al Wright took over in 1954, and his first year he came up with the idea of a Golden Girl. And that was because Lenny Dawson was playing that year. Lenny Dawson was our quarterback, and he was the golden boy, and so we needed a golden girl. And so Juanita Carpenter became our first golden girl. We've had a golden girl ever since. Al Wright instituted that. He also came up with the concept of the world's largest drum. He wanted to bring some notoriety to the band. He did that. And then he also came up with the concept of I Am an American that is read still before all the home football games. Very moving these days. Al Wright came up with that. He actually instituted international trips, and the band every other year or so now enjoys an international band trip, and a lot of the followers will go along with them, and they'll actually go to, I think most recently, maybe Ireland on St. Patrick's Day. The band is very, very popular, and of course, we don't have a music school, And so the marching band and all the different ensembles, there's well over a dozen different ensembles, I think, of university bands. So home of the bands right here, right on in the east side of the Hall of Music. We're going to hop back in the cart now. We're getting all kind of sound effects. Hop around this way. Up, up, up. Okay, we hope you're enjoying your tour, homecoming tour. We haven't lost connection yet, I don't think, too much, so we're having a good job. Going around the Hall of Music, and this is where the processional, from the Armory would walk by as you would go in for one of our commencements, and we still like those formal commencements here on campus. Now we're going to go up to a relatively new structure on campus. We were going to talk a little bit about the Hall of Music and Wilmeth Hall, which we've done once, but a little bit of construction going on right now. But coming up on the right is going to be a nice dedication for our fight song, Hail Purdue. Hail Purdue, which was written and accepted around 1912 by James Morrison. He was in the class of 15. This was put up by one of the classes of Iron Key several years ago. Just a great spot for a photo and that sort of thing. Just a great setting. You can go ahead. Traffic's picking up a little bit as students are starting to go to class, and so we're going to have to make our way through without running over, and Jason is doing a great job of missing every student here. As we pass by the Hall of Music, which is connected to Hovde Hall, some of you may recall that the bridge between the two, there used to actually be a road underneath. You could actually drive underneath. This is when you could drive and park in front of Hovde Hall. You could drive around it and come right through here. I think one too many tall trucks came through there, and after a while they decided maybe that wasn't so good after all. Now going by Hovde and headed to the Engineering Mall, or Purdue Mall as it's called, we're headed towards the interactive water sculpture there. This is the one that took the place of Loeb Fountain back around 1988 or so. Just again, a beautiful setting. And we're going down the sidewalk where some of you might have walked in your processional as you were getting ready to go to the far end, left turn, and come right around it and go up the front steps to be a part of your own commencement ceremony. Passing by the Mechanical Engineering Gateway Edition on the right, opened in 2011. This actually has the clock from the original Hevelin Hall in working condition right within the building. That's worth a stop next time you come to campus. Now we're going to swing and actually get up close as we can to our interactive water sculpture. Looks like they're already starting to get some of the preliminary things off for homecoming. A lot of effort going into homecoming and all the things that are going to be going on this coming weekend. Okay, stick with us here. We're working our way up towards the fountain. And for our first student interview, no, we're just kidding. No interviews planned. Hi. So in front of the beautiful interactive water sculpture, a little bit of history of it. You actually used to be able to walk right through and stand right on the water as it's coming out of the ground, but it has so much force to it that eventually they had to put in kind of a stainless steel cylinder right in the middle that you go around it. But students still love to come here and do fountain runs from time to time, cool off. It's one of Purdue's many traditions. You'll have to try that one when you're back if you've not. But a beautiful setting here with Hovde Hall in the background, and for a homecoming weekend on campus. And so that's going to do it for this particular session. I hope we've seen things that are familiar to you, brought back some memories, and maybe you'll think about coming back for campus eventually, maybe homecoming weekend. But it's a beautiful campus, and you really need to experience it if you haven't been back for a while. So on behalf of April and Jason, we wish you the best. Go Boilers, and hail Purdue.